Glass explodes with the framed photo against the wall, shards skittering into the hallway light. In the mirror's untouched edge, someone has etched, without explanation, the words idealization and devaluation, two calm syllables bending the room. Each step forward crunches on glittering glass, and the air feels wrong, like a spell half broken. A neighbor pauses in the doorway, eyes flicking to the mirror, then turns away, as if the naming itself hurts. I kneel in the hallway, palms splayed on cool tile, watching the pieces of frame scatter in slow arcs. The hall light is the same amber it always is at this hour. Nothing flickers, no sirens wail, just the steady hum of the radiator and Mrs. Klein's radio drifting through the paper-thin wall. My neighbor has stepped back into her doorway, her hands busy with a dustpan, the routine crease between her brows smoothing as she sets it aside. "You okay?" she asks, not pressing, just letting the question rest beside the shattered glass. I nod and, together, we scoop the larger fragments away. The rhythmic scrape against tile a small metronome. Above the couch, the mirror still stares with that calm, etched message. The words catch the light like something waiting for the next breath. But otherwise, the apartment feels like any other Sunday. Coffee cooling on the counter, a stack of library books leaning on the table. The soft thump of a neighbor's laundry tumbling in the building below. I wipe my hands on my jeans and reach for the lint roller, the small orange wheel turning as I collect the glitter of broken glass the way I usually gather stray hairs and dust bunnies. Nothing rushes in. The building hums on, and the ordinary rhythm of small, careful movements keeps everything from tilting. The kettle shrieked, steam curling into the cramped kitchen as Mara set 2 mugs down with a tremor in her hand. She had already wiped the counter clean of yesterday's dust, but the shards of that night still felt like grit under her nails. "It started with a spill," she said, eyes tracing the path of her fingertips along the edge of the stove. He threw the glass when the curry didn't look right. It hit the shelf, bounced, and the whole pot of beans tipped, right over the photos my mother sent. Gina leaned in, fingers curling around the ceramic, slowing Mara's voice even as the words cut sharper. "He didn't let me touch the mess." Mara kept going, her jaw clenched so tight the tendons pulsed in her neck. "He shoved me back, just to keep me out, like I was the one who couldn't clean it without making it worse." Her shoulders hunched forward. I grabbed the rag anyway. I'm still standing there, and he comes storming in. He yells that I made him look weak. Between them, silence hung thick for a second. Then a crash echoed from downstairs, someone dropping a toolbox. Mara flinched, palms splaying on the table until the mug rattled. I remember hearing his boots on the stairs. He barreled in, grabbed my wrist, spun me so hard the cabinet door cracked open. I could smell the curry again, burnt, metallic. He slammed his hand against the counter, and the knife block toppled, knives spinning like a small, rigid sun. She swallowed hard. He said I was stupid, that if I hadn't ruined dinner, he wouldn't have lost control. Gina's thumb pressed into her palm, slow and deliberate. "You didn't make him do that," she said. But Mara shook her head because the words were too loud, too certain. She opened her mouth, then slammed it shut when the front door banged, startling both of them into action. Mara stood, picked up a stray photo from the counter, and placed it face down. The edges had softened from dusting, but a thin crack marred the glass over her mother's smiling face. "I stayed," Mara whispered, even though she stepped back as if warding off a spark. "I stayed because when he pulled away afterward, he was gentle for a day. He promised he'd never raise a hand again, that he wouldn't let me be afraid in our kitchen." Her fingers curled around the mug so tight the glaze creaked. I still believe that love should keep us from breaking things, not make them fly across the room. The doorbell rang, sudden and sharp, pulling them both upright. Mara walked to the window, eyes motionless on the hallway, and in the reflection, her own face flickered with new light. I started writing everything down after that night, she added, voice automatic now, as if the act of listing could keep the chaos outside. Time. What was said. What I did. I don't know why he snapped, but I know the pieces, the broken glasses, the way my ribs still bruise. Does it help? Gina asked, not waiting for permission. Mara didn't answer immediately. She traced a line in the condensation on the glass, fingertips leaving a foggy trail. It makes the night real, she said at last. It keeps me from pretending there isn't a crater in the middle of us. She stood straighter, the edge of resistance cutting through her breath. But I still believe love can grow even when the ground shifts, as long as it doesn't become an excuse for the shaking. The bell rang again, several short, urgent taps, and Mara's hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. She didn't move toward it. Instead, she turned to Jaina. "Can you stay?" she asked. The question hung between them, a small vessel of trust waiting to be filled. Gina nodded, came around the table, and placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. "I've got you," she murmured, soft enough to be heard but not to erase the jagged edges left by the memory still hovering in the air. Gina bent over the counter, frothing milk until the small metal pitcher rattled. When Mara glanced up, she wiped her hands on her jeans and slid a mug across the table. The living room smelled like burnt sugar, and the breeze from the cracked window kept the curtains rattling. Mara's pen kept tapping against the page, a rhythm matching the flash of the phone light from across the room. "Write it down," Mara said without looking up. "Every time he tells me I'm irreplaceable, it's 2 sentences later he's accusing me of ignoring him." She circled a sentence and underlined it hard enough that ink smeared. "This isn't just stress. In the morning he leaves a voicemail where he says he's never met anyone who understands him, and by dinner I'm a liar for not clearing my plate fast enough." Gina slid onto the edge of the sofa, the mug warming her palms as she leaned in, the coaster clacking against coffee table wood. The phone chimed. Mara's thumb hovered over the screen. "He's calling," she said, and when she answered, the voice filled the room. "You sound tired, but you sound different in a good way." Mara leaned back against the cushions, the notebook falling open to a page where she had written adoration, then rage, with arrows between them. Her breath came in a shallow, uneven line. Gina dragged the mug over, pressing it into Mara's palms, warm steaks against cold skin. And Mara pressed her forehead against Gina's shoulder, letting the small weight of it hold her upright. Mara flipped the notebook to a fresh page, traced a line from the word sunrise to storm, then pressed the pen tip to paper until the tip snapped, a tiny splinter of plastic flying into the air. The break spilled ink across the page, connecting the 2 words with a dark smear. "He loves me," she whispered. But the noise of the phone still hummed in the walls, a bass note that wouldn't let go. Gina didn't answer. She just reached across the table, picking up the mug of cold tea and setting it aside, then pulled a small voice recorder from her bag and clicked it on. "Play me the last message," she said. Mara took the recorder, and for the first time, she didn't hesitate to push the button. She held the device up, listening as the same cycle replayed, the adoration and the rage in one breath. When it ended, Mara exhaled slowly, and her hand found Gina's again, fingers lacing around the warm ceramic, grounding her back into the room. "We're still here," Gina murmured, and Mara nodded. pressing the edge of her thumb into the spiral binding until the rustle of paper drowned out the phone's echo. In the silence after the recorder clicked off, Mara bent over the notebook and wrote a single line in block letters. He flips in the same conversation. She didn't say it out loud, but the ink glistened like a new wound. Gina rubbed her knuckles along Mara's spine, steadying her, and Mara folded the page over, sealing the sentence in the notebook once more. The room shifted, the tension in her shoulders easing just enough to let her breathe. "We watch it," she said, and the words sounded steadier than before. Water stills in the glass on the side table as Dr. K draws a jagged line across the whiteboard. Her marker scrapes from high praise to a sharp drop, and Mara leans forward, palms flat on the couch, eyes tracking each bend. "First comes the sunlight," Dr. K says, tapping the crest. "Then the storm, and the ground keeps shifting beneath that valley." She reaches into the drawer and pulls out Mara's notebook, sliding it over with a pen. "Put a dot where you felt most not like yourself. Don't explain it yet, just place it." Mara's fingers shake slightly as she draws a dark circle near the trough. The tip of her pen breaks the silence with a faint scrape on paper. The marker line now has two arrows, one labeled idealization and the other devaluation. Dr. K spins the board so it faces Mara. "When someone keeps switching between worshiping you and erasing you, it's not just the moment that shifts. The track you're allowed to run on shrinks. The words you hear become the measuring sticks for who you are, even when he's gone." Her voice stays steady, but Mara's shoulders hunch as if bracing for another plunge. She turns the notebook toward Dr. K, revealing her own scrawl. Hollowness, fear, the silence right before he lashes out. "I stop breathing before he even says anything," Mara says, eyes already on the floor. "I wait for the next accusation so hard that I forget how to speak without hearing it through him." Her fingers clench the notebook so hard the paper bends. A bead of sweat rolls from her temple and drips onto the couch. It's like the praise fills me. Then the blame hollows me out. And there's nothing inside. Just... She trails off, jaw tight, then jerks her head as the door of the office rattles from a passing elevator. Mara flinches, heart pounding in her throat, the sudden sound, a trigger. Dr. K doesn't flinch. She slides a sticky note toward Mara. "Write whatever name you have for that empty place," Dr. K says quietly. "He can call you whatever he wants, but give that space its own voice." Mara's pen hovers over the yellow square, then moves. Letters form unevenly. HOLLOW-FEAR. She presses harder, glossing over the ink so the words seem carved. The door click of the clinic downstairs makes Mara tense again. Dr. K nods toward the phone beside Mara's elbow, screen lighting up with a notification she's ignored. Mara's hand twitches toward it, thumb hovering over accept. Another vibration, the name flashing, and she jerks her hand back so fast it slaps the couch. She exhales in a forced breath. Dr. K leans forward. "Just for tonight, keep that line between you and him closed." Mara nods, eyes fixed on the empty space on the sticky note. The bright words catch the light. "Where that fear lives now, give it space, even if it's only on paper," Dr. K adds. Mara tears the note from the pad with trembling fingers and sticks it to her wrist where she can't miss it. A small, steady reward. The tremor slows when she breathes, and the room feels less like a trap. Mara lifts her head, the bright note visible against her sleeve. The hollow is still there, the fear still tugging. But now there's a name, a place to send it. It feels, for a heartbeat, like the storm has a shore. The phone buzzes on the side table, a low insistence that the silence, so carefully mantled over the last few hours, is cracking. Mara lifts it before the third ring finishes, thumb already hovering over speaker. The moment the partner's voice slides in, she keeps it level. "I don't want us to slide into that last call again," she says. "I need to tell you what I actually need tonight." He huffs, takes his opening breath too deeply. "Need? You need to stop acting like nothing is wrong, Mara. You're making this about you again." The voice starts high, then jumps into a sharp scrape. Mara doesn't answer the bait of apology or distraction. "I need you to stop when I say stop." She keeps steady. "I need a pause between accusations so I can breathe. Can we sit with that?" The silence on the line is short. He launches, words piling faster than she can track. "You think you get to set the terms now? You think I'm the one who owes you calm? You're ungrateful. You're manipulative. You make me question everything. You are the one spiraling. You never appreciate anything." His voice is louder. The room around her suddenly feels smaller, as if the sound is pushing her backward. She presses her palm flat against the table, notebook still open to last night's scribbles, fingers brushing the phrase, "hollow fear." "I'm not staying quiet so you can keep yelling," she says, the raw edges of her pulse in her throat. "Every time I go silent, you ratchet up. I'm not giving you that leverage." When he yells her name, it cracks, and something behind her ribs clenches, but she keeps the phone close. If the quiet is what makes it worse, then I'm going to keep talking. "I'm telling you I need a minute, not a knife." He laughs, but it trembles. "You use my own words against me now. You want to control me. You always have. You're the one who never listens." The rage swells. The camera in her little corner of the apartment wobbles on the shelf as he slams a kitchen drawer. The sound reverberates through her bones. She hears him inhale and shout so quickly it becomes a blur of syllables, words set on fire and flung. Mara lets him run out of breath. When he finally drifts into a new accusation, she says, "I'm hanging up if this is all you have. I'm done letting silence drain me. You've told me before I'm the problem, and I'm telling you now I deserve to be safe." Static swells. She waits through the backlash, the teasing of a threat on the edge of the line, then calmly hits end. The red button closes the channel. She sits with the ringing of her own pulse in her ears, the phone still in her hand, heat pooling in her cheeks. She flips open the notebook and scribbles the time, the way the voice pitched when he said, "manipulative," the slam after the laugh. She doesn't write feelings. She writes what happened. Then she texts Gina. "Can you come over? I just took a call. Need someone to hear it." Fingers hover before she hits send. Then she taps the voice recorder app, presses record, and summarizes the exchange out loud. The demands, the rage, the fact that she'd spoken up and gotten yelled at harder for it. She leans back against the couch, breath finally lengthening, watching the city light streak across the wall. There's no calm solution yet, but the proof is there. She tried to explain what she needed. The rage only spiked, and silence would have let it keep happening. She consults the sticky note on her wrist, its ink smudged, and hears Gina's laugh in her mind from earlier, steady and real. The reward is small. The knowledge that she didn't go quiet, that the phone call is already documented, that someone is on her side, and that the rage outside the line proves nothing changed inside her resolve. The therapist pushes 2 markers toward Mara. "Where do you want to start this week?" Mara flips open her notebook to the page where the rhythm of voices is drawn like a heartbeat. She names it aloud. Praise, pressure, blame, silence, repeat, tracing each arc with one finger. It's the same climb, the same drop, she says. And the therapist writes cycle of control above the curve. They turn the page and build a checklist. Signal words, trigger moments, and then something new. Steps beyond reacting. Mara writes, if I hear aggression, I text Gina first. If I feel swallowed, I get up and go to daylight for 5 minutes. The therapist keeps the markers moving, helping her pin down what autonomy looks like in the next 24 hours. What's one tiny action you can do when you feel the pull? Mara taps her pen against the page until the tip clicks. I'll close the call, lock my screen, and text safe words. The therapist nods. They add it to the list. She tucks the notebook into her bag, the timeline still glistening with ink. Out in the hallway, Mara's phone buzzes. She doesn't check it until she's slid into the driver's seat. The screen flashes the partner's name, followed by a string of messages. Where are you? Why won't you talk? Her thumb hovers over the decline icon. She swipes them away and opens the Notes app, jotting, safety call with Gina tonight. No contact after 9 p.m. She breathes in through her nose, slowly, just enough for her chest to loosen. She hits send on a text. I need you to come over. Appointment ended. Partner's calling again. I'm going to stay in the living room after dark. Her fingers shake at the edges of the keyboard, but the message lands. The drive home feels longer with the tension of unanswered calls rattling in her stomach. In the kitchen, she pulls out a tote and begins filling it. Passport, insurance card, a sweater with pockets, a copy of the list they just made. The doorbell rings before she can finish. Gina stands there with takeout and a keychain she bought months ago. She steps in, the smell of noodles barreling past the front door, then pauses when Mara swings the door shut behind her. Tell me what you need, Gina says without looking away from Mara. I need to keep this night safe, Mara replies, setting the tote on the counter. She points to the folded page of the checklist. If the call comes, I'll press end and call you. If messages spike, I'll go into the hallway, lights on, and keep talking until the shaking stops. Gina moves closer, touching Mara's shoulder. Say it to me, she says softly. I'm done letting the cycle sweep me. I close my phone. I keep a buddy signal alive. I go outside if the breaths get small. Mara repeats. Her voice edges upward with urgency, a raw breath in each clause. Gina nods, pulling the door of the living room shut behind them to block the noise of the street. The partner's call vibrates again, loud against the island countertop. Mara doesn't look. She's already halfway to the hallway, grabbing her phone and hitting decline before it can ring once more. She pulls Gina in and leans her forehead against hers, the tension unwinding in a quiet exhale. Gina drapes an arm over her shoulders and guides her to the couch. Mara opens her notebook, fingers on the words they wrote in the office, and circles, Step 1, call Gina in thick ink. The circle fills with the marker, and so does the space between her lungs and ribs. Proof that the steps are working. Gina settles beside her, the takeout steaming, the door locked, the lights low. Mara hands her the list and watches Gina trace each action with a thumb, then tap the second bullet. Stay in living room. Lights. Checked-in texts. Mara glances at the clock, checks her phone for another missed call, and when there's nothing, she lets a shaky laugh escape. Short, defiant. I should keep the journal open tonight, she says, tapping the page, to see the cycles curve in ink and how I step outside it. Gina nods, and Mara feels the night's tension loosen, not because it's gone, but because she just named it and acted to contain it. Mara kneels by the coffee table, surrounded by sticky notes and the timeline the specialist sketched. Idealization above. Devaluation below. The trough booked with the words she wrote herself. She flips through the notebook where she tracked the praise-blame call. Her fingers linger on the margin note. Breath in, out, name it, without answering. She pulls the latest one into the magnetized frame on the fridge, right beside the shopping list for groceries she actually bought herself. Gina moves the kettle to the burner, glancing over her shoulder. "You're not letting it fade," Gina says quietly. Mara nods, tucks the magnetic note in place, and scribbles another item on the post-it. "Call leasing office. Ensure new lease ready before she notices I'm gone." The call happens before 9. Mara dials while pacing the tiny kitchen, her fingers slick around the phone. "Hi, I'm following up from yesterday on the downtown unit," she says. She reads each line of her prepared script and lets the leasing agent answer before jumping in. When the agent mentions late fees for the current lease, Mara announces, "I'm shifting all communications to that new address, so please send the termination paperwork there." She ends the call with a breath that shakes, but she keeps steady. In the pile beside her, the safety tote is open. She slides the rental contract, birth certificate, her laptop charger into it, and zippers it closed. The satisfying zip is a quiet drumbeat in the otherwise bare apartment. Gina sits on the sofa, knitting her brow. On the table, Mara drags a folder labeled "Work" toward her. She prints the email she drafted for HR, asking for the remote work confirmation. Once it's out of her hands, she feels her shoulders drop a fraction. She rips the latest voice memo from the partner off the phone, hits delete. The incoming call, unknown number, makes the hairs on her arms stand up. She stares at the screen, breath holding. Gina rests a palm on Mara's thigh without saying a word. Mara watches the call ring twice. She lets it go to voicemail, hits the power button hard enough that she smacks her thumb, then steadies herself with the heel of her hand. "He called 3 times yesterday," Gina murmurs. Mara lifts her head, pins Gina with a look. "He can talk to the voicemail." She returns to the folder, writes "no response" on the note beside the phone, and tosses the voicemail into the trash without listening. The tension drains out of her through the action, the release even sweeter because it came without words. The kettle clicks off. Mara pours 2 mugs of tea, handing one to Gina and keeping one close. She lifts the mug with both hands and inhales the steam, then slams the easier-to-open jar of vitamins onto the counter. "You said this week you'd pick up the legal aid number," she tells Gina. Gina reaches into her jacket, pulls out a folded card with a number written on it, and slides it across the counter. Mara copies it onto her phone and places a gentle thumb on the contact. "Tomorrow," she states, closing the contact entry with a tap. She then goes to the small desk, opens the laptop, and logs into the community center's art class portal. She signs up for the Saturday session labeled "Color and Calm." The confirmation email pops up, and she laughs. A breathy sound, a release that feels like a payoff. She prints it, taps it to the fridge beside the timeline, and writes beneath it, "Something that is only mine." Gina rests her head on Mara's shoulder, the mug between them, and for a moment the apartment hums with the quiet click of the fridge. Mara leans her cheek against Gina's hair. She's still breathing, still closing doors, still refusing to rewind. Light leans through the studio windows like a promise. Mara sets the brush down, palm resting on the wooden frame of the timeline board. Her fingers trace the bold letters of the strip that now reads "Cycle of Control," the ink smudged heroically from hours of trembling and telling. She doesn't fold it away. She lays it flat, pins it beneath the window's ledge so the sun can mark every day it stays. Gina crouches by her side, pulse quiet in the crook of Mara's elbow, the tote with papers and the nighttime table waiting by the door. Beyond the glass, the city hums indifferent and vast. Mara lifts her wrist, the sticky note that once said, "Hollow fear," now shaded by new strokes. Color, not warning, and she watches her breath settle where it used to catch. No phone buzzes, no voice cuts through. The paint on the canvas dries steady, her own pulse keeping time with a new kind of love. The unhurried, loyal shape of safety she built herself.